Making this trip put me in touch with what was happening in a good portion of America during the last 30 days of the 2021 lockdown. Here are a few observations I had. I believe the biggest issue will be vacant office space, which resulted in having no foot traffic on the streets. The virus created a situation where people could not gather and systems were developed to work at home. In the larger cities, the remote work factor will dictate the future and direction of growth. The type of ancillary retail on the ground floor will be a function of the office population. The retail sector had a number of well-established businesses call it quits because of lack of customers. This was not evident in all towns, and some were hit harder than others. Cities like Butte had the large Hennessy Market vacancy going into the period when the virus was spreading. Although a larger city, Minneapolis had a large vacancy when Macy's left in 2017, but the Dayton project in the downtown tried to reuse the space. I captured the vacancy when I was in Minneapolis, and I have followed it along with other situations I observed. I thought the Dayton project would be a good model for Butte. I believe there was a 30,000 square foot office rental that helped facilitate the financing for the project. Places like the Wanamaker building in Philadelphia experienced a larger contraction in office space, with 500,000 square feet of occupied space leaving the building quickly and quietly. Large ground floor vacant retail space below offices in Seattle used air motion puppets to spark movement and simulate hustle and bustle. The retail contraction was incredible. Without street traffic, larger cities had their retail base decimated. In smaller towns, there was some that fared better than others. There was a lot of vacancies in Demings, New Mexico, but the town did not have boards on the windows. Other smaller towns that, to some extent, were boarded, like Marfa, Texas, unfortunately were made to look worse than they were. The riot towns had more boards than others. There were messages on the boards in some of the towns, and the towns like Minneapolis, Milwaukee, and Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, the Chaz, were more or less scrubbed. I was a little disappointed in the Chaz. Residents went back to normal after temporary succession from organized government. Although there may be some lingering doubts about what was happening in those downtowns, I generally believe that the loss of office population and the broad swath of retail vacancies were because of the virus lockdown and not the protest, although that cannot be said in Portland, which remained boarded during the last 30 days. California was by far the most restrictive, with indoor dining and entertainment was kept to a minimum. Although in Cambria, California, I was able to eat at Lombardi's, and Fisherman Wharf, I was able to sit down for fish and chips. I mostly did takeout and maybe ate too much pizza. The pizza factory in Dunsmuir, California was the best. Montana seemed almost unaffected by the virus or protest and looked like it was moving along. The atmosphere was more of individual self-control rather than edict or lockdown. Idaho was beautiful, but there was an issue with stormwater management on their interstate. I could not believe how much water was crossing the road as I was driving, and I had to slow down significantly to avoid aquaplaning. Trucks were passing me and splashing massive amounts of water on my windshield. I got the impression that Kenosha suffered the most of all the social upheaval. Walking around, taking pictures of the conditions prompted people around me to look down to the ground. I think what happened there is a scar in the soul of that town. Going to Gary, Indiana was an awakening. There was a payday loan place and a hairdresser as the core of the town. The rest of the buildings were ready to be or should be torn down. If you tore them down, it would just be a vacant lot, and I am not sure what kind of incentive you could use to attract development there. I would like to revitalize that town. It's my kind of project. I had a few favorites like Wallace, Idaho. Sheridan, Wyoming opened my eyes to a more comprehensive art strategy through the use of sculpture. I saw it again in Gillette, Wyoming, Rapid City, and Sioux Falls in South Dakota. I believe on the East Coast, these strategies would complement efforts to revitalize downtowns utilizing an arts and entertainment economic development strategy. It's like everything. You need repetition to create environment. The repeating in Milwaukee of the planner design could be replicated by any design element implementing a consistent design strategy in the downtown. Thank you for visiting my site, Last Days of Lockdown 2021. Over 80 videos showing conditions at the end of the 2021 lockdown, which I have chronicled for posterity.